All right, welcome once again to our second live stream. Today we're going to be talking about endurance. Uh, I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying these live streams and using them to help you in your ministry, especially in mentoring young people and helping them understand what it takes to be a leader and how to be the leader of our churches today and not for tomorrow. So this week we went into endurance. Last week we were into patience and why we need patience in everything that we do because God is patient. Patience pays off, and it is something that helps us think better because our thought process doesn't work when we move impetuously. So I'll just do a quick review on what I posted during the week on the page. And the first quote came from Napoleon Bonaparte. The first virtue in a soldier is endurance of fatigue. Courage is only the second virtue. So, as a general that was conquering much of the world in his time in the 1800s, Napoleon had a strong army, and what made his army so powerful was just this little tiny tweak he put into it, which was the amount that they would cover in a march. They actually were trained to march at a faster cadence than the other armies of the day. So endurance was important for Napoleon's army. So it wasn't courage that he was really looking for at first. It was endurance. Endurance. The stamina to keep going. So that's what it is. And if you're curious, what is endurance? Endurance is the power to withstand pain or hardships, the ability or strength to continue despite fatigue, stress, or other adverse conditions. The second quote that I put up from George F. Kennan says, heroism is endurance for one moment more. So for just one more moment, even when you're feeling tired, you continue to go on and just do it one more time. A perfect example that comes to mind is Desmond Doss when he was at Hacksaw Ridge, and he was saving a lot of individuals and bringing them over that ridge back into safe, into friendly territory, into safe arms. He kept saying, Lord, just one more. Lord, just help me find one more. And he stayed practically the entire night, completely fatigued, completely tired. His hands were ragged from tying those ropes and bringing and carrying those people down, but he saved nearly around 70 people. And because of his endurance through that fatigue and also his bravery, he was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. So endurance is something to have. Third quote, endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is the one who endures that the final victory comes. So, and that is from Buddha, and it sounds very similar to what the last quote will be, but let's see what the other quote is. And it is from William Barclay, and that quote is, endurance is not just the ability to bear a hard thing, but to turn it into glory. And lastly, of course, from scripture I had to take it, and it's from the apostle, Hebrews 12 verse 1. We don't know officially who the author is in Hebrews. Most people do believe it is Paul, but let's see what the author here in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1 says. And it says, let us run with the endurance the race God has set before us. So if God has set a race before us, and what is very important about it is endurance. So let's talk about that today.
is so crucial today in youth ministry and in mentorship and in leadership today? It's because even though you've made the commitment and you have dedicated yourself into taking a new role, whether it be in your church, your community, at your job, in school, usually when you've given the willpower to take on that new responsibility, it starts off feeling really good. You're filled with endorphins, the excitement, the curiosity of doing something new. And you're not feeling the rigors and the pain of the hard work of doing it day after day after day. Let me use this example. The Apostle Paul likened ministry to running a race. When you want to quit when you run is not after step number 1 or step number 2 or step number 3. When you want to quit is usually when you're closest to the finish line. Because somehow that's the way our bodies work. After we've been running for a good amount of time, depending on your physical stamina, the acid starts to build in your legs and the breathing becomes labored and the sweat becomes so heavy upon the skin that your brain starts screaming at you to give up, to quit, even though you're closest to the finish line, even though you're closest to the goal that you have set before yourself in your ministry, and maybe even closest to the goal that God has prepared for you in your role. So that's why endurance is so needed, because day after day, you have to continue to grind at what you do. You have to keep going at it. As it says, I take up the cross daily. And that's not something that you want to do probably every day. There's going to be some days you want to stay in bed. A good, perfect example is as we're coming toward the end of the year, people are going to start their New Year's resolutions. And what we always find about New Year's resolution, whether it's to lose weight, whether it's to read a book every month, whether it's to learn a trade or to better themselves, we find that people are filled with energy and excitement and are dedicated all throughout January. The gyms are filled with new members. People are at the bookstores buying new books and self-help novels and all kinds of knowledge is being shared. But then around February, it starts to dwindle. When people starts to feel the fatigue in their bodies and they haven't gotten the stamina up in their mind and in their body. So they quit. And that is something we have to train ourselves. And we have to turn to God every single day to train ourselves, to better ourselves, to put our cares in His hands so that every single day we run the race, because the closest we are to the end is the more you're going to feel like you should quit. Like the famous parable goes, and it's not in the Bible, but everybody knows it. The tortoise and the hare. The hare had the speed, but he didn't have the stamina of the mind. He didn't have the endurance of the mind to keep going at the race every single day. The tortoise did. And even though the tortoise was extremely slower and it took longer for him to travel in a day than the hare did, he ended up winning because he kept his eyes on the finish line.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. That brings us nearly to the end of this week's live stream. Come and see the page on Sunday when I reveal the next word that we will be going into, the next aspect, the next characteristic that we need to be working on. And hopefully, you're using these tips to help you in your ministry, in your mentorship, so that you can be better. Uh, what we're also asking is if you enjoy these, to please comment, share, post, tag somebody who could use this so we can grow this ministry. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next week. All right. God bless.